But y'all call it holding a grudge. I call it, I saw who you was and I ain't unseen.
Now, see, after my dad left, my mom was struggling. And it wasn't just my mom's side of the family that didn't help her. It was my dad's side. Even though my mom had to accept that my dad was gone and none of her family or my dad's side actually pitched in all the way with her and tried to help her with all four of us. But my mom seen that it was a lot of people that wasn't on her side. But then the guy that came down the street with the skates on his shoulder, he helped her. Not only did he help her then, but he helped her for 22 years. He helped her. This man came out of nowhere, but when I hear people say that that's your dad, it's a difference between a dad and a father. Your father is who got you here. Your dad is who raised you. And Eric raised us. Eric did, he wasn't a real, like a, what you would think a dad would be. But his way of being a dad had to work because we made it. We made it without everybody in our business. We made it without Eric asking for anything. We made it because he stayed. Eric didn't just stay, he stayed and raised us. Now, when I say he raised us to the point where we learned how to skate. I've told y'all that time and time again. Because skating to Eric was a relief. It was like a release. But we're going to get into skating a little later about what happened when Eric went skating for the last time. But nevertheless, he taught my brother how to be a man. He taught my sister how to stop being such an overreactor. He taught me how to survive. And he taught Monique how to not take no shit from nobody. So at the end of the day, even though my father left, my dad stayed with us. And this part of this story, I want y'all to understand that Eric is my dad. Eric stayed. And when I say he stayed, it wasn't that he stayed because of my mom. Eric stayed because of us. And we had so much admiration for him also that I don't think I could ever have been who I am without him being in my life, because he wasn't right. He did his little dirt and stuff like this, but even after he did his dirt, he still stayed with us. Even when he had to meet my dad, and he met my dad, and him and my dad never had bad words. Him and my dad never ever had bad words. But Eric was the type that he would tell you exactly what was going on, and he'll actually tell you why. But he was younger than my mom, so it was different. I can remember this one time, Eric was trying to explain to us about periods. And when Eric was trying to explain this about periods to us, he didn't want to embarrass us, but he wanted us to know, because it was 3 girls and 1 boy in the house. So he wanted us to know that what part of our life was going on. So when, like, I can remember when I got my period. When I got my period, Eric told me, he said, Monica, when you get to school tomorrow, go to the nurse and get you some tampons and some pads from them, because they're free. And I'm like, how do you know they free? He was like, well, hell, all the girls used to do it at school. He's like, it's got to be free. He said, get as many as you wanted, then y'all ain't got to pay for it with the money that y'all make. So the next day, I went to the nurse's office and I got some pads and some tampons. When I say it was like, like a whole little box full of them, and he was right. These kind of things is what matters when you are a step parent. Even though we never called him our stepdad, yeah, we called him our stepdad, but he was my dad. I mean, he did stuff like, it came up time for me to learn how to drive. Eric was so, like, he was an old man in a young man's body. Eric was like, maybe, I want to say 5'4", 5'3", and he was light-skinned and had a mustache. And I went to Eric and I told Eric, I said, Eric, I want to learn how to drive. He was like, well, when you take that home ec class, he said, take driver's ed and see if you pass driver's ed, I'll take you to get your driver's license. So I went in the second quarter of school, I went and I took driver's ed. Now, when I took driver's ed, they had a simulation back then where you could actually simulate driving and stuff like this. I always would get like a high grade in the simulation thing. I even told my teacher, even though it was a damn lie, I lied. I told a lie. I lied and told this man that I was practicing at home driving, and God knows that I had never been behind the wheel except for this one particular day. So we gets to class, we get to driver's ed, and the instructor is in the front, is a student on the passenger side, and then it was like two of us in the back seat. So when it came up time for everybody to drive, he let them drive around the city, this and that and whatever. Now I'm back in the back practicing my foot because I had never drove. So I'm in the back moving my foot from side to side and stopping with my foot and stuff like this, but I'm from the back. So our driver's ed teacher, I will never forget. Our driver's ed teacher had told us that we was going to go driving. Now I'm thinking that we're going to drive around the city and this and that and the third. He took, and when it was my turn to come from the back seat to the front, I got in the driver's seat and I told him, I said, I've been driving, my mom showed me how to drive and this. Where I messed up at is that I told him that my mom had let me drive on the highway with her in the car. Now, as you know, Mary King ain't going, no ma'am, She gonna jump out like G.I. Jane. She ain't going for that shit, she not. My mom was not gonna go for us driving without driver's license and a seatbelt, insurance and everything. I know, not Mary King. But she never let me drive. She never let me practice. She knew that I was in driver's ed, but she never let me practice. But I told the teacher that she did. And so I guess he wanted to see how well I had been doing as far as driving and stuff. So I got in the driver's seat. Lord, when I say, he was like, we was coming down Helena. When we was coming down Helena then would branch off. It would branch off into the little store behind Grandview Hospital, and it would just branch off. So we started from there because I was going to Longfellow. So we started from there, and here we go. We going on down the street. Tell me why this man said, Monica, get on the highway. Shit got real when I had to get on that highway. Listen what I say. You should never, ever, ever tell a lie to your driver's ed teacher. Don't do it because they're going to call your bluff. Because, baby, I got ready to get on 75. And when I tell you I floored it and his paper fell, his clipboard fell, and the people in the back seat was down in the back seat with their hand over their head. And I'm driving like a bat out of hell. I don't know how to merge. This man like, oh my God, get off, get off, get off, get off. He scared me, so I'm trying to weave it. It was a whole mess. When I say he was happy to get me the hell off of that damn highway, when we got off the highway, the class stopped like 45 minutes early because he took the driver's ed car back to Longfellow and put us the fuck out of there because they could not believe how I was driving on the highway. I was screaming. I was yelling down the window. I was trying to roll the window up. And back then, the windows was rolling up like this with this thing. It was just a mess. When I tell you I lied, when I had to go back and tell Eric what had happened, Eric made fun of me for like maybe, 2 weeks. But that's the kind of personality that he had. Eric didn't give up, but that's the personality that he had. Even though the teacher had told me that I needed to practice more and this and that, when I got to the house, I told Eric what had happened. Eric told me, he said, Monica, if you pass your test, I'll take you up to the DMV to get your driver's license. I'm like, cool. So I went on ahead and I passed driver's ed. And so I'm thinking that we're going to take my mom's car and go get my driver's license. No, Eric made it hard. Eric was collecting cans. When I say he was collecting cans, he had like maybe, about 20 bags of cans on the back of his pickup truck. Now, keep in mind, where we was going to Huber Heights to take the driver's ed class. And I can remember We was standing there. The man told me, well, what car are you in? I pointed to Eric's truck that had the about 20 bags of damn cans on the back. The man looked at us like, but we looked at him like, we taking the test, right? Everything worked in the car, but he just had his cans on the back of the car. They was bagged up, but still, it was cans on the back of the truck. I jumped in that damn truck like Daisy Duke, and I took off. When I say I took off, I took off. I passed everything until I got to the stop sign that was flat on the floor, and I never seen it. So I ran the light, and I ran the stop sign. And he didn't tell me, the man that gave me the driver's test, he didn't tell me if I had passed or failed until we actually parked. Which, if I was him, I would have parked too, because I know that he knew I had already messed up the driver's ed class. But nevertheless, I still had to go and tell Eric that I had failed this test. When I told him I failed it, I cried. When I say I cried, I bawled. I mean, it was a mess. Eric told me, he said, Monica, if you really want your driver's license, you have to improve. So that's just what I did. But see, my dad, meaning when I say my dad, I'm talking my father. When my father found out that Eric was taking us to get our driver's license and this and that and the other, he kind of got mad at my mom because he said that Eric was taking his place. He didn't have no place to me. Once he left, he left. And whatever life he built outside of what we had, that was on him. That wasn't on us. So I didn't take it personal when he wasn't there for when we first started our periods in Cramps and how we was buying clothes, how we was developing, how my brother was delivering newspapers at 7, how my mom was working 2 jobs and had food stamps. He understood that. And that's why I think my respect for Eric grew when, if we got in trouble at school, he would come up there and get us. And he would hide us out in the house until it was time for us to get off the bus. Then we would he would make us run out the back door, run to the corner where the bus was coming, because Mary King knew what time we was going to get off that bus. So 9 times out of 10, she was going to be watching. So when the kids got off the bus, I just meshed with the other kids and I got on off. Even if we was suspended, this man had our back against my mom. And it wasn't in a bad way. It was just that he didn't like for my mom to get really, really mad at us. Even when we knew it was wrong, Eric made a way for us to stay out of trouble. And simply for that, I appreciate him. Not only did he stay with us when we got in trouble, but he stayed with us when Eric was there when all 3 of us was pregnant. I had Curtis in June. Monique had Jermaine in August, and Margaret had Michaela in September. So Eric stayed through us, going through it and all this other stuff. Now Eric was the first one to bring to my attention that he didn't like my baby daddy. When I say he didn't like my baby daddy, he did not like him at all, because my baby daddy was almost the same age as Eric. But because he was older than me, Eric knew him from around the way. So when he seen him kept coming over to the house, he pulled him to the side without me even knowing. And he told him, he said, "This is my daughter. You will not mess over her. You will not do what you want to." He said, "If I catch you doing it, me and you gonna get into it." And when Eric said that him would fight, he meant that shit. He meant just that. Eric, my sister Monique had some friends that was around the corner. And Eric had a funny feeling all day. He kept telling Monique, "I don't think you should go over there today. I don't think you should go over there." But by Monique being young, she went over to her friend's house. Well, when she went over to her friend's house, they had planned on jumping Monique. They planned on jumping Monique only because Monique had stuff and they didn't. So when Monique went around that corner, some little boy on a bike came around the corner to our house and told us, they jumping your daughter, they jumping your daughter. Monique was trapped in the house with the door locked. They locked the front door so couldn't nobody else get in, and Monique couldn't get out. So they was jumping her, and Monique was fighting for her life. When I say fighting for her life, Monique was fighting 3 girls at one time while they dudes was standing there watching this whole shit. So when the little boy came around to the house and told my mom and Eric what had went on, Eric took off running. When I say he took off running, he took off running around the corner, ran straight to that girl's house. And when I say he kicked that door in, he kicked the door in. He fought, him and my mom walked in there, and they start fighting everybody in that house trying to get my sister out of there. Now, when Monique came out of there, she had like maybe a couple of scratches on her face or whatever the case may be. They never pulled her hair out. They never bit her. They never did none of that. Because when I tell you Eric went in that house, and when he came out with my sister. He came out with my sister. That's the meaning of a dad. That's a real dad. That's a real dad. Even when I thought I wasn't pretty enough, he made sure to reassure me that I was. That is my dad. That is Eric. Okay, so Eric would take up for us, but he did things for us that my dad should have done. Eric made sure that we stayed like humble. He made sure that we stayed to be girls. And when he seen something was wrong, he called you out on it. He didn't wait. He just called you out on it whether you liked it or not. And if we didn't like it, we had to get in the square ring with him, and we had to WWE wrestle him all the way down to the ground because he wouldn't hit us, but he would like put us in like the leg lock thing, and then he'll put us like in the full Nelson. He'll stretch us to death. He'll run to each wall like it was the ropes on the ring, and he would just jump on us for no reason. But this was his way of disciplining us. This was his way of showing us that he was in charge. And we never questioned it because he is my dad. But when Eric, I'm going to tell you when I was most proud of Eric being my dad. Monique had got proposed to by her first husband. When she got proposed to him, she asked Eric to walk her down the aisle. My dad somehow found out that Monique had asked Eric to walk her down the aisle. He flew all the way from New Haven, Connecticut, just so he can try to walk her down the aisle. But Eric was such a good man. Eric told my father that he can walk Monique down the aisle also. So they both walked Monique down the aisle for her wedding. But Eric wasn't mad about it. Eric was so proud that Monique had asked him that he was just overjoyed for being there. My dad, on the other hand, was there for other reasons. Just to show that he was our father. Just to show that he made us. Or just to try to take that one moment that actually belonged to Eric and it didn't belong to him. He still had to have his hand in it. And I didn't understand why my mom still allowed him to do that. But all in all, Eric is amazing. I'm going to tell you this part and then I'm going to leave it alone for tonight. My mom got a phone call and it was from Eric's mother. And she called my mom so that my mom could go over to Eric's apartment. This is way later. This was like 2 years ago. But when she went over there, Eric was definitely sick. And my mom was so worried. Even though they were broke up, my mom still loved Eric. And she loved him to death. But this is what happened. So when my mom found out that Eric was sick, my mom went over to his mother's house and she asked her, what did Eric need? But my mom, it was too late, I think, for my mom to save him. Because Eric had emphysema. Because he smoked Newports like crazy. Don't say it because I smoke them too, but we're not going to talk about that. Don't judge me. Okay. But anyway, Eric smoked Newports and he got emphysema and he was on a portable oxygen machine. Eric had been telling my mom that every now and again he can't get out the bed because he had water retention on him and he couldn't get it off. But yet and still, my mom still went over there. She cleaned up his apartment for him and all this. Even though they were broke up, I think my mom and Eric had a love that was like no other. Because not only did he love her, but he loved her kids. And I think that's why my mom actually loved him. But my mom got a phone call from his mother. She couldn't get in contact with Eric one day. And when she couldn't get in contact with him, she called my mom because my mom had an extra key to Eric's apartment. So when she called and she couldn't get through, she went and picked up Eric's mom and they both went over to his apartment. When they went over to Eric's apartment, Eric had been dead for like 2 days. And his mom would have been trying to call. My mom had been trying to call. And it hurt my mom's feelings. And my mom was so sad when she found out about what had happened with Eric. Now, my mom and his mom got together. They did the funeral together and things. But at the end of the day, I think I took it harder when Eric passed than I did when my dad passed. I couldn't believe that Eric was so young and he passed away. But Eric was a good man to my mom. Eric was a good man to us. Eric showed us what it was to be a kid. Even though Eric did some god-awful things, some like 1 or 2 times or whatever, we'll get into that later. But Eric is just what we needed. Eric was just he was the ideal dad. Eric was my father. Eric was my dad. My father is my father. So at the end of the day, I am privileged to have a stepdad named Eric.